Hi guys, I'm Whitney and welcome back to my channel. Today, I decided to try something a little bit different. I decided to do a 2023 Hugo eligible TBR list. So if you're looking for books to read or books to consider nominating for the Hugos, these are some that I would have on my TBR, as well as if you're just looking for good books to read. And because I like to vote in multiple categories, I want to include a couple of novellas that have come out this year. So let's start with novellas first. I have 5 novellas that have come out in 2022 that would be Hugo Award 2023 eligible. They're also probably pretty good reads. The first is going to be Becky Chambers' Book 2, A Prayer for the Crown Shy. This is the sequel to Psalm for the Wild Built. I really enjoyed this novella. It followed Dex, who is a tea monk, and this is taking place in the future. He's a non-binary character who runs into a robot named Mosscap. The monk is sort of searching for his purpose in life. The robot is trying to figure out what humanity really needs. The first novella was really well done. It really gave you like warm fuzzy feelings and really dealt a lot with what human purpose is and how to answer that question in a kind of a clever way. And it kind of combines science fiction with self-help in a way I haven't seen anybody ever do. And so I'm really excited for this one because the question for this one is asking if people live in a world where they're getting everything they want, does having more really matter? And so I'm not sure if it's like more of a materialism question or not, but I really am excited about this novel. Again, she usually does very well with her endings, and it's usually a warm fuzzy. The second novella is called What Moves the Dead, and this novella is by T. Kingfisher. T. Kingfisher is a pseudonym for Ursula Vernon, and this is supposed to be a retelling of The House of Usher. And if that isn't interesting enough for you, there's supposed to be a killer fungus involved in this novella. So I'm already interested. I don't really know anything more than that, but it's supposed to be very dark and very interesting. I'm in, let's check it out. The next one is one that I've already bought because I'm so excited about it. It's called January 15th. This novella follows 3 ladies in the future in a world where the government provides a base salary to every citizen on January 15th. And it really is supposed to explore this idea of how having a base salary that you don't have to work for, the government just gives it to you, how that affects these 3 women individually, and you're supposed to kind of explore how it would affect you and other citizens of the future. This one sounds like it could be really hard impact, make a lot of statements about the future. I'm really excited to check this one out. Now, the last 2 novellas are ones that aren't necessarily cheats. They're just not a TBR because I've already read them. The first one is Ogres by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which I have already reviewed before. He does really well in his novellas with twisty sci-fi fantasy, kind of merges the two. So if you're interested in that one, definitely check out a previous review, but I highly recommend it. I had a really good time with Ogres. And then the next one is Comeuppance Served Cold by Marion Deeds. This one was a 1920s magical heist novella. It was just a lot of good fun. I review it previously in one of my monthly wrap-ups. So if you're looking for some novellas to start with, those are some new ones that I recommend. Now let's get into some novels. Now I want you to know that the Hugos allow both sci-fi and fantasy, so I've kind of included a mix of ones that are on my TBR already. Now that doesn't mean that it's every book that's ever been published in 2022, because 2022 isn't even over yet. These are just a few that I'm really excited about. If you know any more, please leave me a comment down below. Also, at the very end of this video, I'm going to put up a little montage,
little compilation of visual images to go with the song,
of several other books that have been published since I've finished filming that are books that might be worth checking out, or maybe books that I didn't know about. I'm going to start with a fantasy epic called The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. I've seen several people on BookTube get really excited about this one. What I know about it is it's a fantasy epic following a man who is considered a justice, you know, for the king. Kind of explanatory with that title, right? He has some magical powers that compel people to tell the truth, to allow him to be a better judge. And he's investigating a murder of a woman and trying to solve it throughout this first story. Now, what's interesting about this novel isn't just that it takes place in the law, which is definitely not something very common for a fantasy epic, but it's also told from his sidekick or his clerk's perspective. So I think that's going to be really interesting. I have already signed up for this one at my local library, and I think it's coming up in 2 weeks. So hopefully I will review that one shortly. The next novel that is definitely Hugo eligible is one called When We Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. This one is supposed to take place in 1955, where some big world event happens and a certain number of women get turned into dragons, and they literally breathe fire and fly away. It's about what happens to the women who were left behind. I think we follow one particular girl who some of her family members have become dragons and some haven't, and nobody is really allowing her to talk about it. I do know that this one has some queer representation, if that's important to you, although I don't know how good it is because I haven't read it. But this was one that definitely sounded really interesting to me. The next one is Ymir, Y-M-I-R. This one is by Rich Larson. This is a standalone novel that is supposed to be a future retelling of Beowulf, and it's supposed to be kind of a loose retelling, and it takes place on an alien world from an alien protagonist who doesn't want to be on his alien world, and he is sent back home against his will to solve a problem and hunt a beast. While that does sound a little bit Beowulfy, I'm not really sure how well this does, but it's supposed to be a very unique rehashing of Beowulf, and I'm already intrigued. Already we don't have a human protagonist, we're in the future, and it's supposed to be a unique take, so I'm in. I also heard about this one from Rachel from Shades of Orange, and I'm gonna link her channel and her review in the description down below if you're interested in checking that out. The next one is a book called Stringers by Chris Panettiere. I think I said that right. I went to San Francisco to find a bunch of books and ended up finding this book on the shelf at Borderlands bookstore, which is a sci-fi fantasy only bookstore that you can buy books from in San Francisco. So if you're interested in supporting them, their information is in my description below. But this novel is sold to me as a smarter, more science-heavy version of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Apparently, we follow a particular human who is really well known for all of the useless facts that he knows. He gets abducted and then immediately sold from one alien to another. And there's supposed to be a lot of science that's really heavy, a lot of puzzles that we have to solve, and yet there's also lots of humor as well. I'm already in on this story. This cover looks beautiful. This premise sounds interesting, and I'm not too put off by heavy science fiction. So this one sounds to me like a potential Hugo eligible book, and it is one I'm really excited to pick up. Our next one is called Our Lady of the Artilects by Andrew Gilsmith. This book was sold to me in many different ways. The first is a review on the cover says something about being similar to Hyperion, which is already like, whoa, what? And then they said that it is a combination of Westworld and The Exorcist with a light sprinkling of Snow Crash. Wow. Talk about some expectations there. This book is going to have quite a bit of proving to do. All I know is that in this book, androids start having some kind of vision or a dream of a particular lady, and the Vatican and the Pope send a priest and an exorcist to go investigate what's actually going on. And of course, there's a whole bunch of politics at play. This is happening in the future because there are androids, so they have some sort of political problem with China, and then Africa gets involved. Then of course, there's a plot to save humanity. It sounds like a lot of weird combination of things to go together. There's a lot of like religious overtones to this novel.
Well, duh.
I'm really intrigued to see how this novel goes. High expectations, but I'm pretty hopeful. Now, two other novels that are definitely going to be Hugo eligible and are very popular. How High We Go in the Dark, which is a book that I have already reviewed on my channel, and it was very well done, but it was one of the most depressing novels I've read in a long time. It's definitely not going to be getting my vote just because ain't nobody need that kind of depression in their life. Another novel that I've already read that's definitely going to be Hugo eligible just based on her popularity is Emily St. Mandel's Sea of Tranquility. This was a multiple universe time travel novel that I felt like she tried to be too clever, and I ended up DNFing myself. So again, this novel isn't necessarily going to get my vote, but it might get yours. So you may want to check those out. Also, worth noting, Naomi Novik's third book, Golden Enclaves, is coming out. This is the third in her series. It was A Deadly Education and A Last Graduate. I loved this series. I think I described it as a dark female Harry Potter, and then a lot of my friends got really mad at me for that. So I guess that's not an accurate description, but it is a magical school. It is a lot darker. It is a survival story. There's a little bit of a romance, and it's one of those fast-paced YA type novels. I just really enjoyed it. I have already pre-ordered this, and I think it comes out in November. And I also need to mention, my man, Adrian Tchaikovsky, has two books that are coming out that are going to be Hugo eligible. The first is going to be Eyes of the Void, which is the second book to the Final Architect series, I believe. It's the follow-up to Shards of Earth. I have not yet started this series. I know I'm a terrible fan, but I've been trying to read everything else. I do plan on reading both of these novels before the Hugos next year, so that way I know whether I want to nominate it. But there's a really big contender, which is his second novel that's coming out, Children of Memory. This is the third book in his Children of Time and Children of Ruin series. I'm really excited about this because this third novel is supposed to complete the trilogy, and it's supposed to be a really good one. I'm really excited to see how the series ends. I will be getting it as soon as it comes out. So these are two big novels that definitely need to be considered Hugo eligible. Books that I don't consider to be Hugo eligible myself because I'm not a huge fan, but are very popular, is Blake Crouch's Upgrade. And I'm not a huge Blake Crouch fan, so this is one I'm probably gonna skip. And then also Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. I love John Scalzi. I will probably read this book, but I've heard that it's more lighthearted and fun than necessarily as deep as a lot of people tend to want the Hugo winners. So while I don't think that this is a bad book by any means, I'm just not sure that it is Hugo quality. That does it for my TBR list that are Hugo 2023 eligible. If you have other books that you have read that would be eligible, please comment down below and let me know which ones I have forgotten. I also want to encourage you to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you're interested in more content. And lastly, I'm going to go ahead and start a quick montage of some other books that were published in 2022 that would also be Hugo eligible that I wasn't quite sure that I should put on my TBR list. Until next time.
Thank you.